There's nothing worse than being like at your local grocery store, having one of your toddlers fart, and then having to just stand there. Like there are people around you, maybe a random stranger heard it and just assumes that it was you. I mean, why would they even assume it was me? There's that brief moment where they actually doubt what it is that they heard or who it came from, especially if your child decides to just randomly blame you for it, even though he clearly knows it was him. Anyways, that's the life of being a parent, I guess. They pass gas in public and then they try to pawn it off on you. But anyways, all jokes aside, in today's video, I'm actually going to get a little bit serious here. Well, I don't know, as serious as you can get about action figures and collectibles. And it's kind of something that I preached a little bit, I want to say like maybe a few months ago when the whole tariff situation started. And I should say this isn't a tariff video at all. I think it kind of inadvertently has to do with the tariffs, but I'm not going to mention them because I've beaten that conversation to death. It's just kind of something that I've been noticing more and more consistently. And I think it's really bad for the small guy, for Entertainment Earth, for Big Bad Toy Store. I think even bad for GameStop, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really keep up with GameStop anymore. I've completely given up on that retailer. I've had like at least 2 to 3 different instances where I really wanted a collectible and they canceled my pre-order for absolutely no reason, and so I've completely given up on them. Now, the reason that I'm mentioning those those retailers, I should say, is primarily because they deal in fan channel exclusives. I mean, in general, they'll receive most of the Marvel Legends and Hasbro action figures, so on and so forth. But it also has to do with the fact that they're now, I guess, officially the fan channel group. These are the OMs that usually, or these are the retailers that the OMs go to when it's a fan channel exclusive. And so they usually have first dibs. From time to time, you'll see stuff become like a Walmart exclusive or a Target exclusive, but that's somewhat rare. It's usually if it's like a repainted action figure or something that they feel that isn't going to sell as well. Now, something that I've been noticing, and as I said, the trend that I've been noticing recently is stuff is not selling out on Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth. And it does kind of affect me because I have started to purchase way more on Big Bad Toy Store. I have purchased a few things here and there on Entertainment Earth, but usually Big Bad Toy Store is kind of my go-to nowadays, especially if something sells out on Amazon, which, by the way, is the trend. And I should reiterate, some of this stuff goes in and out of stock, so maybe something that I'm talking about at the moment of the recording maybe goes back in stock through Amazon or goes back into stock for a small portion of time, for a small little tiny window. So I think maybe what I'm saying kind of changes, or I should say isn't as relevant by the time I actually upload it. But as of the moment of this recording, a lot of stuff is selling out on Amazon, and that has a lot to do with the tariffs. I'm sorry, I know people are so tired of hearing this, but I think it's really going to affect the smaller retailers, because every time that I check, for example, the new Gamerverse Juggernaut, that's just a prime example. I'm just going to use that as kind of like the blueprint of what is going on here. You see the Juggernaut action figure go up and you immediately assume, well, it's going to be available through multiple different online retailers. You have Amazon, you have Entertainment Earth, Big Bad Toy Store. I believe maybe GameStop had it. I'm not 100% sure. But for a fact, we know that the big three had it, right? Amazon, Entertainment, and Big Bad. The problem here is that Amazon can easily afford to just give you the figure at the $60 price point. There's a price guarantee, or I should say there's a pre-order price guarantee, meaning that if you pre-order the figure at $60, they're going to give it to you at $60. Why is that? Well, because they don't only just ship action figures, okay? They ship everything. They ship like faulty condoms. They ship, dirty socks with holes in them. It really doesn't matter. They'll sell anything that they can possibly move. And obviously there are third-party sellers on there that go and, sell their own merchandise or sell their own products. So, it just really doesn't compare. They're selling potentially millions of items on a daily basis, whereas like the smaller online retailers probably selling a few dozen. So it just doesn't make any sense to compare. Unfortunately, what's happening here, and it's not even close, like Amazon will offer, let's say, the Juggernaut Marvel Legends action figure for $60. The rest of these online retailers can't even compete. They're going to offer it to you for $65 plus shipping, and not even accounting for tariff fees, meaning that you could potentially, and again, this is just kind of like, spitballing really for the most part, even though we have seen a number of different people on like Reddit or a different social media posting their personal experiences when purchasing through Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store recently. But the tariff fees are real. Like, you can actually purchase this Juggernaut action figure for about $65. Plus tariffs, which let's assume it's another like $10 to $15, you could be paying about $80 for this Juggernaut action figure, which you could have easily been able to pick it up on Amazon for $60. It's about like a $20 to $25 price difference. Again, why is that? Well, Amazon can just kind of bite the bullet. They can cut their profits a little bit more than some of these smaller online retailers. I think the Maximum Hulk was another perfect example. I think that one was being sold, if I'm not mistaken, Best Buy had it for $50 for a good stretch of time, and then eventually Amazon had it for $60. Now, I haven't checked that one recently, but I know at some point it had sold out through Amazon. But guess where it was still available? You're right. Entertainment Earth, Big Bad Toy Store, they were struggling to move this figure. I believe Entertainment Earth just went, like all out and just showcased their price point with the tariff fees, if I'm not mistaken, for a good stretch of time. Like, they just showcased the price point there. They didn't even bother to sugarcoat it. They didn't even bother to offer it to you for $60 and then, on the back end charge you a tariff fee. They didn't do that at all. They just gave you the price up front. Same thing with Big Bad Toy Store. I think they were offering it for about $65, and then they put that warning under the picture saying, or under the description, essentially stating that the price point was going to increase because of the whole tariff situation. And the list goes on and on. We have, for example, the Fantastic Four wave, which I think initially sold out, and I think that's only because the pre-order window went up later on Walmart. But if I'm not mistaken, like, that particular set was available on Amazon first, and then it's completely sold out, or at least some of the characters sold out through Amazon. I think like 2 to 3 different characters from that particular wave sold out, but they're still available on Entertainment and Big Bad Toy Store. Why? Again, the tariff fee. They're going to have to up all of their prices because they simply can't afford to bite the bullet on a lot of these collectibles. I mentioned Best Buy earlier, but same thing, their profit margins are so good. They're selling electronics to you. Okay, they're probably purchasing some of these electronic devices, like a television, for example, for $1,000, and they're marking it up to about like $4,000 to you. Their profit margins are huge. So if they lose a little bit, or if their profit margins are not great when it comes down to collectibles, I don't think it's going to bother them as much. And they've been actually having some great deals recently. We just saw like Captain Boomerang for as low as like $12 to $13 on their website on clearance, which is a figure that originally retailed for $29.99. But there are just some great, perfect examples. Not to mention, Amazon will give you free shipping past $30. If you're purchasing through Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store, you're gonna have to pay a shipping fee. Usually, I think Big Bad Toy Store is like $4 flat rate for most collectibles, and I think Entertainment Earth is a little bit more expensive. I know they offer, being able to like compile different purchases into one shipping fee, but for people that actually want the collectibles in hand as soon as they possibly can, they might not be able to do that pretty consistently, right? Like, if you pre-order something, you want it right away, you want it in your collection, or if you're somebody that likes to do photographs or content, if you're a content creator, or if you're just somebody that doesn't want to wait, you're going to pay that extra shipping fee. Those are all things to account for, and these smaller retailers have just not been able to adjust. I'm not sure exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, I think these tariffs are just absolutely demolishing these companies. They have absolutely no way of competing with Walmart. If I'm not mistaken, I think even some of their 2-packs were selling out on Amazon. As I said, I think some of these might have come back in stock, but some of the newer Gamerverse 2-packs were also selling out. I think that Venom Captain America 2-pack might have sold out, and then that Wolverine 2-pack sold out. Both of them, and I could be wrong, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but if I'm not mistaken, both of these were available on Amazon, and both of them sold out through Amazon, at least through the beginning stretch, which is where I was really paying attention. But it's mind-boggling to me that there are people out there that thought that these smaller little retailers could survive these big giant tariff fees. it just makes absolutely no sense. I actually just made a purchase not too long ago, and just to give you guys an example, I bought that new retro card. Well, it's a reissue retro carded Green Goblin action figure from the animated series. I felt like I was just gonna cave in. I could have been a little bit more patient, maybe found them for a little bit cheaper, but I just decided I'm just going to keep the pre-order because I did this maybe like a few months ago as soon as they became available through Big Bad Toy Store. And just to give you an idea of how much I paid for this figure, which isn't like astronomically high, but it just goes to show the difference. I paid about 32 and a little bit, 32 and change. So it was about like $33 for this retro carded Green Goblin action figure. Doesn't sound that insane, right? But had I gone, and that's with taxes and shipping included, had I gone through Amazon and let's say I would have gone the free shipping, I buy maybe another figure, I would have been able to pay closer to about like $27. Now, for a $5 markup may not seem like a lot, right? Because you have to include whatever other fees I paid, taxes, and then shipping. So $5 doesn't sound that outrageous. But now you're talking about a 2-pack where you have to pay for shipping. Maybe they're going to throw a tariff fee. And I'm going to assume that the Green Goblin came in before the tariffs, or maybe they were in a warehouse here in the States, and that's why that's why there's no tariff surcharge being applied to it. But could you imagine how much more a 2-pack is going to be with, taxes and fees, and then the tariff surcharges on top of it? This is absolutely insane. I'm starting to feel like these online retailers are really going to start hurting. They're really going to start getting into this giant hole that they can't get out of, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just can't compete with the bigger retailers. They're never going to be able to compete with Amazon. They're definitely not going to be able to compete with Target either. And so I think as the deeper that we go into this new era, we could see a lot of these retailers going out of business. We already saw manufacturers going out of business. I know I haven't really talked about it too recently on the channel, but let's not forget, we did see NECA hurting not too long ago with their new price hikes and how they were handling their consumer base. There was Super 7 and how they fired, a bunch of different employees and how they had to cut back. And then there was obviously a Diamond Select, which ended up closing all of their action figure manufacturing, right? They got bought out. It was this whole long and tedious situation. But we rarely talk about the retailers, right? Like, we're already seeing manufacturers going out of business. What about the retailers? I think this is only going to get worse. And I also made a point of emphasizing this, but the new Mega Man action figure waves are actually going, the new Mega Man figures, which, by the way, I don't think they're worth that much. Jada's an absolutely phenomenal action figure manufacturer, but they're marking them up to now $30 plus tariff fees and shipping. You're probably going to be paying closer to like, I don't know, $37, $38 for some Jada Toys Mega Man action figures. And they're not even like the main action figures. They're some of like the C-list characters on the video game. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to sell that well. A lot of the Street Fighter action figures that are now being placed in stock are now going for $29.99 plus the tariff fees. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with like Funko Pops. The DC Multiverse figures, we're starting to see, they were usually already marked up by like $2 to $3 compared to Amazon, Walmart, and Target, which they could usually keep it at retail. Let's say if the retail price point for a DC Multiverse action figure was $24.99, usually Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store would charge about $28. Now add the tariff fees, now add shipping to it. I think this is really bad news for them. And as I said, we saw manufacturers get into trouble, and now we're going to start seeing the retailers get into some real trouble. It's going to get really tough. And as I said, a lot of the Marvel Legends, DC Multiverse, Jada, so on and so forth, they're selling out on the bigger websites. Target, Walmart, Amazon, they're not having any problem moving this product. In fact, they're selling out, and it's incentivizing the consumers to not purchase from the smaller retailers. But as time moves on, a lot of this inventory is just sitting on digital shelves, and it's only going to get worse the deeper we get into this entire situation. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Have you been even buying from these smaller retailers, or have you been going through Amazon? Have you noticed that there's a little bit of a trend, like Amazon continues selling out, same thing with Target and Walmart, and some of these smaller retailers are struggling a little bit more? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you guys think the hobby is in a good place, in a bad place? I'm very curious. As I said, it's about connecting with the community. It's about getting a feeling for what's going on. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys like this type of like rambling action figure content, just absolute ranting, wasting saliva, this is the perfect spot for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Make sure to enjoy the hobby. Pose your action figures, play around with them. I know stuff is absolutely insane. I try not to even watch the news. So it's just important to like enjoy those small little moments that you have with your figures and, just family in general. But yeah, your action figures, make a little bit of time for those as well. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.